Hello, and welcome to the St. Louis Green Business Challenge weekly virtual brown bag seminar series. I'm Jean Ponzi, manager of the challenge, and this is number 57 in our series that began in April of 2020. Today, it is my great pleasure to get to present to you a program from St. Louis Audubon, BirdSafe, and its companion, LightsOut Heartland. LightsOut is part of the BirdSafe STL campaign that hopefully will be of interest to your organizations, your institutions to participate in with your buildings. First, we always acknowledge our sponsors. Graybar Electrical. Graybar is the presenting sponsor of the challenge for all 12 years of this program's lifetime of service. So thank you, Graybar, for that generous and persistent sponsorship. Supporting at the sustaining level, thanks to Ameren, Missouri, Ride Finders, and Citizens for Modern Transit. Supporting the communities in our Green Cities Challenge, OneSTL, our regional sustainability plan, Madison County, Illinois, supporting the communities within their jurisdiction, and then overall support from the American Planning Association, St. Louis Metro chapter, which combines planning professionals in Missouri and Illinois in our region. Anything having to do with reduce, recycle, reuse, compost, or any of those other R's is supported by St. Louis Jefferson Solid Waste Management District and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. Thank you. Coming up next week in Challenge Virtual Brown Bag, Ameren, Missouri will present the structure and the function and the scope and a wonderful model, I think, for an employee engagement program. They call it SURGE. A little electrical power pun there, stands for Sustainable Employees Resource Group. Looking forward to hearing about that. And actually, personally looking forward to making a series of biodiversity presentations this summer and fall to SURGE. To save the dates for you, have these on 2 slides this time. On Tuesday, August 17th, it will be my great honor to present about the work that we are all doing here in St. Louis in the Green Business Challenge to the American Alliance of Museums national membership. The challenge was recognized in 2021 with a Sustainability Excellence Award in the programs category by AAM. We just got the link, not quite in time to send in this week's e-news, and also the time frame in which the challenge will be presented. The program overall is noon to 1:30 Central Daylight Time. The challenge will be at about 12:30, I think it's 12:28 is the time frame, for 20 minutes, and we will be sharing the program with MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, and the Burke Museum of Natural History in Seattle. So we'll send you the link to register for that, and if you'd like to join and root for the challenge, please do. And there also will be a recording of that we'll share. And then this is a big one coming from our own challenge project Hopper. On Thursday, August 19th, our regular virtual brown bag day will have a special hour-long presentation of Roots of Success, an environmental literacy and job development curriculum that has been in use originating from the Bay Area in California and in use across the country for 10 years. Supporting people, training people, giving green collar jobs, training and job readiness focus, and environmental literacy. That's the big thing. Humans need to understand how to work with nature, to people who have not been able to succeed in traditional educational or training contexts. I'm hoping that we will have interest in using Roots of Success here in St. Louis. So we'll hear from its developer, Dr. Raquel Pitterhughes of Roots of Success and San Francisco State University. Also Grady Mitchell, who leads this program in prisons, and Kate Gannon from the Chicago Botanic Garden. Their Windy City Harvest program has been using Roots of Success for all 10 years of that program's lifespan. Look for the link to register for this in next week's e-news, and we will be promoting this through a variety of partnerships in addition to within our challenge community. Today, Jean Favara joins us from St. Louis Audubon. She is the vice president, a board vice president in charge of conservation for Audubon in St. Louis. BirdSafe STL is a project that has significant ramifications where we are on the Mississippi River Flyway. There are there's a lot to ask of building owners and operators, but there are options there. And we really hope that some of our challenge companies will either work within their own buildings or work with building management teams. And we're very happy to help you with that, to implement LightsOut Heartland in September and to participate in BirdSafe. Some rigorous research went on here. And without further delay, Jean, I want to stop sharing and welcome you to the Green Business Challenge as our guest presenter today.
Okay, so I just started sharing my slides, and Jean, can you see my slide? Does that look good?
Indeed, I can. We can, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Jean. As Jean said, Jean Favara, that's who I am, and I am currently Vice President of Conservation for St. Louis Audubon Society. We were the first local chapter of the Audubon Society established in the US in 1915. We have over 3,000 members across the St. Louis metro region. And our mission is to create a community connection through nature in education and conservation. Okay, hold on. I've got a problem with forwarding my slides right now.
Try using the arrow key, the right arrow key, if you can't get down to the Zoom control.
So I'm using the arrow key, and right now I'm not having any luck.
And the other thing that you can do is just, you should be able to put your cursor over the screen share and get to the forward and reverse arrows in Zoom.
I tell you what, I'm going to try to restart my share and see if that helps.
Okay.
So, sorry about this, guys. Just give me 1 minute now.
Mm-hmm. While Jean is doing that, want to let you know that how we met was, actually it was in January 2020. And we, Jean and one of her colleagues, Stephanie Todd at Audubon, had approached me about connecting to buildings in downtown St. Louis that were occupied by challenge participants. So this has been a long time in coming, but the research that I hope you will be able to see here, as I said, is quite rigorous. How are you doing?
Not any luck so far. I'm not sure what happened, because when we did this early, it worked fine.
Mm-hmm. And try the return key. Will that work?
Okay, when I'm not sharing, I can get it to work.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we'll stick to the non-presentation view just to make sure I can get through my slides. I apologize for that, guys. So I've introduced myself. We talked a little bit about St. Louis Audubon Society. And I'm going to talk about 3 things during this talk. I want to talk to you a bit about the biology of birds and how that drives the fact that there are dangers to them in our urban and suburban areas of St. Louis. I want to talk to you about what those dangers are as they migrate through our area and as they use our habitats in our urban and suburban areas. And finally, I want to finish up with showing you what the business community could do to help protect birds in our area. And so let's talk a little bit about the biology of birds and why there are dangers to them in our area. This slide shows the 4 major migratory pathways in the United States. Interestingly, 3 to 5 billion birds will migrate across North America in the spring and the fall every year. 70% of North American birds species are migratory. And out of that 70%, 80% of those birds will migrate at night. So your first question would be, why migrate at night? Well, there's 3 probable reasons. It's cooler for birds to migrate at night. They avoid predators such as hawks, and hawks migrate during the day as a rule. And they can use the stars in the night sky to help them migrate as they move. Now, I've told you there's 4 migratory pathways shown on this slide, and the Mississippi Flyway is the flyway that sits right over St. Louis, shown by the red star. This flyway encompasses 13 states, and it's mainly defined by the Mississippi River. And just as I gave you some numbers before, 60% of all North American birds, this is a major flyway, use this flyway to migrate. So it's heavily used. And that equates to over 325 bird species that use that flyway. For our area in spring, the peak is generally the first 2 weeks of May in the spring for migration. In the fall, bird migration is much more spread out. Birds can start moving as early as July, and that migration event can go through November. So that tells you a little bit about bird biology and how that might make things dangerous for them during migration. Next thing I want to talk a little bit about is bird collisions themselves. What is the scale of the problem? Why should we care? Well, Cornell Lab of Ornithology scientists have recently shown that we have lost 30% of our bird populations in the United States and Canada since 1970. That is an amazing number, and it has happened well within my lifetime, and I'm going to guess that's well within the lifetime of many of the people watching this presentation today. So we have to do anything we can to help protect our bird populations. Other scientists have shown that bird collisions account for birds being killed, 600 million birds killed annually by building collisions. 56% of this mortality is occurring at low-rise buildings, less than 1% high rises, but their birds per building mortality is the highest. And also because that tends to be a lot of birds on a single building that have been killed, we hear more about that in our press. We tend to be more aware of that problem than with low-rise buildings. So we have the problem of light for birds. Light at migration time causes birds to be confused, and the sky glow from our city can cause them to be disoriented as they're trying to navigate during their migration period. An example of this is the Twin Tower Memorial in New York City. The lights in the Twin Tower Memorial are spotlights that shine straight up in the sky, shown in that right-hand picture photo on this slide. Those spotlights can shine up to 4 miles high. Can you see up to 4 miles high? Unfortunately, when they turn them on, they capture birds in the light. Birds become confused and they simply fly around that light and do not fly on in their migration. So in collaboration with New York City Audubon volunteers now come down to that memorial during migration periods, literally count the birds that they can see in the spotlights. When the bird numbers reach about 1,000, the spotlights are turned off by the Twin Tower Memorial staff for about 20 minutes. The birds are released from that light and they move on. So it's a great example of a collaboration between Audubon and, in this case, the memorial to help protect birds migrating in the New York City area. Okay. And in addition to that, scientists have shown at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology that St. Louis is a dangerous city for migrating birds. In this case, they looked at light pollution levels, they looked at geography and radar. And interestingly, now we can use radar to actually look at the intensity of bird migration. We use weather radar to look at events on that radar, and they can define birds versus wind and other weather events, which is really great technology. And when they combine those factors, and in this picture on this slide, you see the yellow color, that is a high migration intensity color. The white circles show you where the radar is located that they used to build this data set. And they came up with a risk factor looking at cities across the United States. And they found that St. Louis is the 5th most dangerous city for birds migrating during the spring, and the 6th most dangerous city for birds migrating during the fall. So we've talked a little bit about why light is a problem for birds in general, and especially during migration. But there is another problem for birds in our area, and that is the problem of glass, and including building design. For birds, birds do not see glass as barriers. And this is especially true in windows that have high reflectivity, like mirrors, where you might get reflection of vegetation, like shown in this picture of this slide, or if there's a series of windows that show a transparency that birds think that they can fly through. In addition, as we build our buildings and we create canyons and walkways that birds can become trapped in. So there's both the glass itself and the design of the building itself that contribute to the dangers that birds find. And it was because of these reasons that St. Louis Audubon Society recently established what we call the BirdSafe St. Louis Project. And the goal of this project is to establish long-term community relationships that support bird safe practices and reduce bird fatalities due to light pollution, building, and window collision. And recently, we established a partnership with LightsOut Heartland, and that organization is focused on the role and the impact on light pollution on plants, birds, and insects, and night sky viewing. And in collaboration with that organization, we are promoting LightsOut's events during May and September, which are a high migration intensity months in our region. So next, I would like to talk to you a little bit about the volunteer surveys we established starting this last fall in fall 2020. And these are surveys that are done by volunteers in a downtown area, which is about 8x8 block area. We do these surveys on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays mornings. And the surveys take about 2 to 4 hours, depending on the number of birds we find on a given day. We have split the survey area into a west survey area and an east survey area. So I have 2 survey teams of 2 people each, 2 volunteers on a given survey day. We are surveying a total of 25 buildings on those survey days. And this is basically a community scientist project that uses volunteers and iNaturalists on smartphones to record any data on any dead or injured birds found in our survey area. And for me, the story I'd like to tell here is basically one where you realize what real life is like. So for me, intellectually, as a bird watcher and a bird lover, I understood that there was this problem. I'd read some about it, I had studied some about it, and intellectually I knew about it. But it wasn't until I got downtown and started doing the surveys where that message really hit home. And I'm finding these beautiful birds that I normally like to see alive in the trees around my house or anywhere else where the habitat is available. And I'm finding them dead or injured on the sidewalk. And this is not a happy thing to have happen, but it really hammered home to me what the problem is. And just very briefly, I would like to talk a little bit to you about the results of our fall 2020 surveys that's shown in the slide here. There is a lot on this slide, but I'd just like to focus on a couple of things for you. This is the daily count of birds we found during our survey period. We started on September 1st and went through October 15th. Keep in mind, we're only surveying 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Sundays. And the x-axis shows a survey date, and the y-axis shows you the total number of birds found. And the red stars indicate the surveys on Sunday mornings. And I only did that because we only do Tuesday, Thursdays, and Sundays. And Sunday night or Sunday morning would be a 3-night accumulation potential of birds. So the high numbers there could be due accumulation, but I like to point something else out. Those high numbers, we had a high of 23 birds found on one survey, but we did have survey dates that we only found 1 bird in that entire survey area. The other interesting thing we found was that there is a tool called BirdCast, or a website called BirdCast. That BirdCast website uses, again, weather radar data to predict intensity of migration moving through your area. And you can actually go to that website, print and put in St. Louis, Missouri, and it will show you a 3-day forecast of migration intensity moving forward from the time you enter your data. And for example, for us, there was a high migration intensity night predicted for 10, 12, 20 for us on the survey. And indeed on 10, 13, 20, we had our second highest amount of birds found, 22 birds. So we know that BirdCast is a reliable tool we can use and you can use to help predict what nights might be the most dangerous nights to birds during migration period. Our next slide is some pictures of buildings that had the highest strikes in our surveys. And these are 3 buildings with our highest number of strikes. And you can see that there is a high-rise component on some of these buildings, but some of these buildings are also low-rise. And so I just want to point out a couple other things about these buildings that are shown in the next slide. And it shows you what are the characteristics you see in these high strike buildings. These pictures of the buildings are derived from the pictures that you saw on the previous slide. However, now what I'm showing you is the side of the building with the most strikes. So when the survey volunteers go out and do our surveys, one piece of data we get is what side of the building did you find that dead or injured bird? So each slide shows you the highest number of strikes for that high strike building on what side. But what you can see, there's some principles here that illustrate the characteristics of high strike buildings. You see both the high and low rise components. You see large amount of reflective and transparent glass in some cases in these buildings. You see vegetation that is planted near glass in these buildings, and you see courtyards in these buildings that have both vegetation and glass. These courtyards unfortunately can trap birds. So these buildings really do demonstrate some of the characteristics that are problematic and cause problems for birds. So in summary, for the surveys for this fall in 2020, what we saw was we had observed or found 235 dead or injured birds from September 1st through October 15th, 2020. I would only say that, would like to say and stress that this is likely an underestimate of dead and injured birds because we are not doing daily checks. And on the days, even the days that we do it, we found that sometimes we were being beat by maintenance crews of the building and the city as they were cleaning up these birds. So we may have missed those birds. We're only surveying publicly accessible areas. And some of these buildings have ledges or inaccessible, non-public accessible areas that we cannot survey. And there's always birds, which is the good news, that are stunned and fly away and survive the event. So because of these many reasons, we believe that this is probably an underestimate of our bird collisions in our area. Now comes the slides that are most important probably for this audience. I want to talk to you about things that businesses and buildings can do to protect birds as they migrate through our area. And we've talked about the problem of bright lights. You can enroll your building in the LightsOut campaign or the LightsOut program. As I mentioned, we are targeting the months of May, and the next month we're targeting would be September, which is our fall migration month or a heavy fall migration month in our area. And you can find details about that at this website, LightsOut Heartland. The nice thing about dealing with lights and the use of lights is you can save birds, but you know what you're also saving? You're saving yourself energy and you're saving your company money. It's a win-win situation in every case. So this is a low-hanging fruit, if you will, if you want to help protect birds in our downtown St. Louis area. And this website talks to you about specific steps you can take to modify lights at night on buildings to protect birds. So I encourage you to go out and explore that, an option to enroll your building. As examples, the buildings that are currently enrolled or organizations that are currently participating, the Gateway National Park has spotlights on the arch. These spotlights light up the arch at night, and they are turning off those spotlights during the months of May and September as a participant in LightsOut Heartland campaign. In addition, just recently, we were successful to get a resolution passed supporting LightsOut and glass collision mitigation efforts in St. Louis County region through the St. Louis County Council. It was passed unanimously. And as a result of that, we enrolled 5 St. Louis County owned managed buildings in our program also. So those gives you some concrete examples of LightsOut campaign enrollees and participants. So we talked a little bit about what you can do to protect against light. Then there leads the problem of glass. What can you do to protect birds against glass collisions? So patterns on glass will allow birds to see the glass. And there's a general rule you can use to help birds to see glass. It's that 2-inch by 4-inch rule. If your pattern is a horizontal pattern on the glass, you want that pattern to be at least 2 inches apart. for birds to be able to see it. If it's a vertical pattern, you want that pattern to be 4 inches, at least 4 inches apart. There are many, many solutions for mitigating glass to protect against bird collisions with varying costs and durability to whatever application you use. American Bird Conservancy is an excellent organization with lots of relevant information on this for you. They actually have tested mitigation methods on glass themselves. So it's really unbiased view, if you will, of how the glass applications work. And I give you that website. I'm showing you, illustrating 2 options here. One on the right-hand side of the slide is actually a very cheap option. That is tempera paint that has been painted into a mural and put on the glass on the inside, but it helps protect birds from collisions. The other advantage on not only being low cost, but if you feel like you don't want to retain your pattern or your mural for the entire time, you can wash that off once your migration period is through your area. So you can spend as little as you want or spend as much as you want to help protect birds from glass collisions. And I also wanted to provide some other concrete examples in our area that you can see and refer to if you're considering mitigating glass for bird collisions. One is at the St. Louis Zoo, and those pictures on the left show windows at the St. Louis Zoo where they have applied stripe patterns in most cases. And in this case, this window actually has a picture or pattern of bear on it to help prevent bird collisions. But another organization locally that has done work on this is at Johnson Community College in Overland Park, Kansas. The 2 pictures on the right illustrate some of their treated windows. There is Crystal Anton, who is in their sustainability group on campus, who's actually done pre and post surveys on their windows for bird mortality. And she can show a 98% reduction in bird collisions using by a 2-inch by 2-inch dot pattern that's applied to the windows. So it's really a significant decrease. And she's one of the few organizations in areas locally who've actually done that pre-post study work and can talk in detail how her applications have worked to help save birds. So those are 2 concrete examples for you. And to wrap up real quickly, because I see we're running just a few minutes late. I'm sorry, Jean, technology issues tripped me up here. This is my last slide. It has resources and contact information for you, provides my contact information. I want to thank Jean for the opportunity to talk to this group and for you today for your attention. I certainly ask you to contact me if you have additional questions. We're actively seeking to develop relationships with the business community to help protect birds in our region. For instance, if you have any connections with building owners and managers association, that would be helpful to us as we move forward. And if you're interested in learning more about these issues, I welcome additional opportunities to talk to you in more detail about ways you can help protect birds from light and glass. And another way you can help if you'd like to volunteer to be a survey volunteer, we'd love to have you. And if you contact me, I'll get you plugged in. And our next survey period will be starting in September. And so with that, I'll end my talk. And I don't know, Jean, whether we have any time for questions or not. I've got 12:30 now.
We will take a couple questions, Jean. Morgan Guile from Ameren has a question in the chat, and Ameren is one building that I've noticed that has made a practice of turning off interior lights at night. Morgan's is a huge supporter of lights out at night, but her question is, how does this relate to safety? Many buildings have lights on for safety reasons as well. In some instances, people are allowed to come into the building, use their passes or whatever to get into the building to work at night. Does BirdSafe and the request to turn lights out on buildings, does that relate to parking lot lights as well? And I know that the U.S. Green Building Council's LEED rating system and sustainable sites both incorporate a requirement for down lights as opposed to up lights as a sustainability measure. But talk a little bit about safety and lights, Jean. And yes, we will take a couple more minutes for questions.
Great, I appreciate that. Basically, I think your point is well taken. Some lighting is certainly necessary for safety. Keep in mind, however, In our society, we have become light centric in the sense that the feeling is the brighter the light, the better or more safe it is. Studies have actually shown that the very brightest lights cause shadowing, and it's in that shadowing that you often can get non-safe occurrences versus a rightly or appropriately used strength of light. So that's some area we can address. You can also use timers or motion sensors are probably most appropriate in those situations where you're not lighting it unless someone needs to go in and the motion is sensed in that case. So those are two examples or two things I would say to keep in mind. Obviously, we would advocate for controlling light as much as possible, but we also know we live in a real world. So we would be willing to work with organizations to do what they can and still keep their employees safe.
And then Maddie Ernest of the St. Louis Science Center is asking about light color, about color temperature. I know that Doug Tallamy, the entomologist and advocate for native plant landscaping, has asked strongly for switch out from the blue, the low end of the Kelvin scale, to the up to the 3000, the top end of the Kelvin scale, yellower lights for insect safety. Are there color factors related to bird safety also?
Generally, that same rule would apply to help protect birds. So you want to be away from the blue and really white. You want to be more in the warm range of lights or light color. I encourage you to take the information on this last slide, darkskymissouri.org. Is a website with a lot of detailed information on light factors, including color, that can help protect birds. So encourage you to explore that further also.
And I'm sorry, I had that exactly wrong. The lowest end of the Kelvin scale, 1000 K is the warm end, the high end, the cool scale is the higher numbers. Taylor, thank you. What is the process for engaging some of these problem buildings downtown? Are you hoping to get in touch with a receptive building manager and go from there? Are there instances of any big business buildings changing their habits or installing window decals? I know we have to give a shout out to the St. Louis Zoo for experimenting with and developing a bird-safe glass pattern that other zoos have done. And Jean Favara, you and I have talked a lot about this, about how we might engage some of our challenge companies that are tenants in buildings. You know, part of your research, part of your findings, haven't gotten to that point yet, but we'll be working on that for the September lights out period. But say a little bit more about your efforts to engage building owners and tenants.
Well, Jean is really giving a nice summary, and this opportunity, for example, is one way we were trying to reach out to the business community to get the message out and to work with businesses moving forward. But it is a challenge. I don't want to minimize what the challenge is, because there are many factors, including the fact that many of the tenants of this building, the buildings, aren't the owners of the buildings, and it's not clear what control they may or may not have over some of these issues. But we are trying to work to build those relationships as we move forward. And for example, I would say the Building Owners and Management Association, we'd love to get in touch with them and to get an opportunity to talk to them about this problem, and hopefully be able to bring in more businesses and other organizations to use these mitigations to help protect birds.
I think there's a real opportunity for a business or two, a building or two to start with, to be a leader in participating in this. If you, as a Challenge Green Team leader or company participant, are a member of IFMA, the International Facility Managers Association, or BOMA, the Building Operator Managers Association, or can hook us up with the IFMA or BOMA liaison within your business, particularly if your business is located downtown, we would very much like to, I know that Jean would like to get in front of those audiences and can make a much more detailed presentation about this and have more interaction than we can offer in our brief half-hour virtual brown bags. Good questions, everybody. Yippee. And thank you, Jean Favara, for the research and the leadership and for bringing this all to our attention.
Well, I thank everybody, Jean, for the opportunity, and this audience for your ability to listen to this message.
And with that, we will conclude today's Challenge Virtual Brown Bag. See you next week. That will be Thursday, July 29th, when Jordan Blackhurst will be joining us from SURGE, the Sustainability Employees Resources Group from Ameren, to talk about that structure of engagement. I think engagement will be, and green at home resources, that's going to be another strong trend that we see from challenge participants this year, as many of our companies continue to work remotely, and there are so many good resources to make that happen. So I'm Jean Ponzi, manager of the Green Business Challenge. Thanks for viewing. Thanks for the green things you do.